Welcome to Nebraska Preps Postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That means it is another week with my guy, my ace, Jacob Padilla, with another week of Nebraska Preps Postgame. Boy, plenty to talk about. Is this going to be one of those seasons, young Jacob? Are we going to be top-heavy, or like Coach Woodard alluded a couple of weeks ago, he thinks the depth of the field may be something to keep an eye on as the season progresses?
What I've seen so far, I think it might be a little bit of both, where you're top heavy with, you got Bellevue West clear number one, and then a whole bunch of other teams. And I think evidence for that is we're down to 4 undefeated teams already. That's it. Through 2 weeks, there are only 4 teams that are 4-0 in Class A. Bellevue West is obviously one of them. Gretna, Millard North, and Lincoln East is the 4th. And we'll talk about all those as we get into this. But I think that points to the parity beyond Bellevue West at this point.
It is going to be interesting as we start with the number 1 ranked Bellevue West Thunderbirds.
Yeah, go check out NEBpreps.com for the latest coaches poll from Mike Sauter, a friend. 4-0.
Are we calling? Is he a friend?
He's at this point. I think
we'll go with Fred.
Yeah.
Begrudgingly, so we'll go with Fred.
But yeah, they opened the week with an 86-50 win at Papillion La Vista, and then followed up with a 75-47 win at Lincoln North Star. So went on the road to 30-point dubs here, and just kind of rolling along. I think the big story is they got Jacob Barote back on the court in that North Star game. Scored 2 points, grabbed a couple of rebounds. Didn't play a ton, but good to see him back out there, get his first action of the season. Josiah Dotzler has continued to make plays. They've had different guys step up. Jackson Stuvey had 19, hit 3 threes in the first game. Robbie Garcia had 15 and 11, double-double there. And then in the second game, they had Steven Pulicek with 12 off the bench. And they had a 30-point third quarter in that game. So just kind of continuing to roll along. They got a lot of options around Dotzler as the main playmaker. They got some size. So Bellevue West continues to look strong. And
it's interesting, too, because, and I was just double-checking, there's multiple ways that he can get you. And lately, he's feeling like scoring the basketball a little bit more, right? Or he had been a primary distributor, and he still continues to do that. He hasn't had the gaudy scoring outbreaks, but you can see the scoring as he's kind of feeling his way along, playing with so many new teammates.
34 points, 14 assists, pretty good balance there last week. So, yeah, just – and that, like, in big games that when they've got that guy to be able to
and he'll
turn
play
it up.
more minutes too, right? Because he hasn't he hasn't had to play a ton of heavy minutes yet either, but offensively, they're going to have some weapons.
And only got 1 game this week. Again, hitting the road, going to Lincoln Northeast, and that'll be they played Papio South. That's probably the best team they played so far. Northeast will be up there as well in terms of the best competition I think they've played, just with their length that Northeast has. So we'll see a little bit more about them on Saturday going on the road.
Yeah, going to Gretna, number 2 Gretna, one of the 4 remaining undefeated teams, doing it a little different, at least early on, than I think they're accustomed to doing it with kind of some of these same guys as they bring back 4 starters.
The 66-37 win against Bellevue East, in which they shot 1 of 9 from 3, which don't really expect that from them, but they only missed 10 two-point shots. They shot about 70% inside the arc. They had 17 apiece from Alex Wilcoxon and Alec Wilkins, and Jeff Roselle had a good week for them as well, 16 points inside.
The 3 guys we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And how about this, though, JP, where we're having these conversations about Gretna early on, and because we talked to Coach Feakin last week on Coffee and Cream, and we're having these conversations without really having to bring up their leading scorer from a year ago, and that's Landon Pokorski.
Yeah, he's kind of been able to sit back as more of a playmaker. He's kind of developed into that point guard role throughout his career, where I think he came in as more of a scoring guard as a freshman. Obviously, he scored about 15 a game early on, and I think he's kind of settled more into that point guard spot as he's developed as a player, which is good for him and for the team. And then they followed that up with a 51-48 win at Prep. I was at that game. Man, there were some long stretches of rough offense for both teams. There were not a lot of points in the fourth quarter, but in the end, Gretna was able to make just enough plays to pull ahead and then hold on at that one. Again, Roselle had double-double, 12 points, 12 boards, 3 blocks, 3 assists, and all of those, I think, were to three-point shooters. They shot much better from three in this game than they did previous. And then Alex Wilcoxon, who bad scouting report, I think, for Prep early where they lost him. He was 4 or 5 from 3 in the first half, and basically all of them were open looks. He did not get a 3 off in the second half.
You got to stay attached to Alex as we've seen. But how about the other A-dub in Alec Wilkins, who I said this to Coach Feakin because he's such a thorn in the side of Westside last year, and he kind of got my attention. He does a little bit of everything for them, and he was coming off a night against Bellevue West where he didn't miss a shot.
Well, and that's the win over Prep is a good one because he barely played. I asked him after the game, like, did he even break a sweat? He's like, nope, because he was in foul trouble almost immediately the entire game. So he barely got to play. He made 1 shot, only took a few of them. So, like, it was the fact that they were able to have other guys step up there and get that win with Wilkins spending most of the game on the bench is a good sign for that team. That makes that a good win.
And one of the things that I think you kind of brought this up earlier in talking about Prep is offensively points will be interesting to come by. How they come, who's going to help out Like it's a different kind of offense, I think, as they figure out how they're going to play in the backcourt.
Yeah, and that's Curry and Prep down at number 8. They're 2-2. They beat Lincoln Pius the 10th earlier in the week. It's the question is who's, like you said, who's going to be kind of that go-to scorer for them, that guy that can create offense where they need it, especially when it's not a three-point shot. Mm-hmm. They struggled inside the arc this past week, and in the win against Pius, 8 of 17 from 3, but only 6 of 19 inside the arc. So like that's just not. That's not going to get it done against better teams, and we saw it kind of cost them in that Gretna game where the fourth quarter they went a few minutes without scoring at all. So that's kind of what they've got a lot of pieces, but they got to figure out, okay, who can we rely on to go make a play for themselves, for others, because none of those players have been in that role to this point. Last year, obviously, you had Luke Jungers that you could play around, Division I player. They don't have that right now. It's just a lot of good high school players, but I think they're trying to figure out, all right, how do we need to play to be successful, and who can step up and be that consistent number 1 option for them.
Speaking of consistency, they're still feeling their way along, but they're unscathed. Haven't had a ton of consistency, especially as we're trying to get into the backcourt here with Millard North. A couple of toughies, but figuring it out. And it's a talent. I know some people may have looked at that Bryan score and they're thinking, if you follow Metro Hoops close, Bryan is going to do that to quite a few teams because I think Bryan is on the come.
Well, yeah, and they've got some pieces that can make any game difficult, which is what happened in that one.
Absolutely, but with Bynum and Tutt, and I mean they've got some options with Amir Martin.
Yeah,
I mean they're gonna do that to some teams.
But got to start with that Southeast game, the 50-40 overtime win in which Millard North they were down 33-24 at halftime. Won the third quarter 12-4 to get right back in it, and then the fourth quarter the score was 4-3, and to get it to overtime, 4-3 in 8 minutes of basketball.
And you got to think Southeast scored 3 points in the final quarter and overtime in that game.
10-0 in overtime. Like that's credit to Millard North for rallying to win that thing, but that's.
It's interesting, JP, as we're talking about it, and I wondered. And you've wondered, and we've talked, but it's so early, you don't want to make any, sweeping judgments. I'm telling you, I said it when they beat Westside. Southeast shot selection and not taking care of the basketball leaves a little bit to be desired, I think, in crunch time. And we saw it kind of manifest itself in overtime.
Yeah, and Neil Mosser led the way, 21 points, went 11 for 11 from the free throw line.
Yeah, you just can't allow that to happen.
It's a guy who took 21 free throws all last season.
Yeah, just don't foul him. It's not. He doesn't really want to get downhill on you. I I don't understand, but listen. If he smells blood in the water, he will attack, and that's kind of his temperament.
And that was big for them because for the first time all season, Derek Rollins struggled a little bit. He only finished with 4 points. I didn't get to watch this one, so I don't know if it was the length of Southeast because they've got unique
and he
size
is
and
undersized playing in their front court too, the way that Miller North likes to play. So you're right there.
So to be able to get a win with Elijah Gaith and Derek Rollins combining for 11 points on 21 shots, like that's a good win. That's other guys picking up the slack there, and that's a good defensive effort. Again, to hold the team to 40 points in 36 minutes. But yeah, that for Southeast there, double from Begot Dak and Jake Hilkeman, who had a good week in both their games. 12 and 7 in that game, had 11 and 12 in their second game, a 75-42 win over Burke. But they're sitting at 2-2 now. And they play Grand Island and they go to Gretna this week coming up. So they're sitting at number 7.
That game's going to be low scoring.
Yeah. But circle back to that Bryan game, like you mentioned. Amari Bynum, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. He's kind of been feeling things out early on in the season. That was his first real big game.
Shot selection is going to be the thing with him. Getting good shots and letting the game come to him.
And only 4 threes. He hit 2 of them. 11 shots inside the arc. That's kind of the better balance that you want to see from him compared to some of the early games. Mm-hmm. But that was a 55-50 win. Miller North pulled that out. Derek Rollins was back in that one. 24 points, 8 of 16 shooting, 11 rebounds. And Neil Mosser chipped in 15 again, an efficient 15. So good week for Mosser. And then Rollins now 20 points in 3 of their 4 games, double-doubles in 2 of them. As a 6'3", 6'4" sophomore, kind of can play inside out. He's having a breakout year for them.
Yeah, and they got another win without some of their offensive firepower really firing on all cylinders. Eli just 2 of 12 from the field. And I still think they're figuring out roles for Skylar Williams and Jacob Martin,
yeah.
Right? So I think kind of feeling their way along with how they want to do their rotation could be interesting.
Yeah, and I think they're feeling out roles for everybody at that point. Even the guys that what the roles are going to be, they're trying to figure out how to play that role. A guy like Geth, who transitions from the 6-man, go get buckets, playing off these other guys to, all right, now you're the point guard running the show, and trying to figure out that balance of playmaking, of shot selection, all those types of things that you need to be good at if you're going to be a starting point guard for a team that they play through. So
and taking care of the basketball, right? Making good basketball decisions.
Yep. And then rising up to number 4 with a 4-0 start, including some good wins, is Lincoln East. 73-31 win against Columbus. Carter Templemeyer was back after missing their previous game.
That's your guy.
13 points, 6-7 shooting. Jared Townsley added 13. And then this was really impressive. 71-54 against Omaha Central, who had not lost, I believe, to that point. Central won the OPS.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting matchup for Central because taking care of the basketball in the backcourt is going to kind of be a thing. So Central has to figure out how not to get sped up and take better care of the ball. And they played a good defensive-minded team in Lincoln East that did not allow them to get easy baskets.
Yeah, and that's a team that's going to rely – they don't have a ton of depth. They don't have a ton of size. They rely heavily on that backcourt. And Carter Templemeyer, 19 points, 7 of 12 shooting. Carter Mick, 16 points. And Connor Hamilton, 15 points, 50% shooting. So you got those 3 guys all going at the same time. They're going to have a chance in any given game. And the combination, like you said, holding Central to 54 points and those guys going off, scored them their 4th win of the season in 4 tries. So they got another big week. They've already beat Lincoln Southeast, obviously. So 2 good wins already on their schedule in that 4-0 start. And now this week they go to Lincoln High, who has a lot of size. It's going to be a tough matchup for them
to get,
based on the roster.
To get easy shots.
Yeah, and keeping guys like Justin Bolus and Bryson Faines and Colin Nick, those guys off the offensive glass. Vince Garrett's a big wing. So, it's going to be a tough matchup. And then they go to Creighton Prep on Saturday again, who is still a solid team despite the 2-2 start.
And it's a tough place to play.
Yeah, and they've got 2 close losses. Like they've been right in every single game, and they've got some talent still. So that's a big week for Lincoln East to kind of continue to show like, hey, we're for real. But they're off to a great start at this point.
Yeah, and this is another team in which they could be competing with for that Capital City title, even though we have referenced Lincoln Southeast earlier in some of their matchups. How about Lincoln Southwest in terms of – and so much for that schedule we thought was going to be a little favorable for Omaha North. Kind of gotten off into a tougher start than I think some thought. A lot of people had their eyes on them, and it's early, so we'll see what still happens. But 2 good wins, I felt like, as they hammered Grand Island and won the close one over Omaha North.
Yeah, 76-39 over at Grand Island, so I made the trip out there. And then a 63-60 win against Omaha North. And Chuck Love continues to play well, 17 in that first game, 19 in the second one. Efficient play overall during the week, and that's a guy that's kind of continuing to emerge as their leading scorer on a veteran-heavy team with a lot of upperclassmen. The sophomore is having a great start to his season.
Yeah, and Omaha North's got to get a little bit better shooting from Thomas and Strong. When that backcourt shoots it well with good shot selection, it's a different team to go along with the inside presence of TeAndre Perkins, who, for all intents and purposes, is going to be a tough matchup for most teams almost every night out. But Strong and Thomas have to shoot it better for Omaha North.
Oh, absolutely. And Perkins had a good game in that one, kind of got going a little bit. That they definitely need him as well.
I think he needs a few more touches, but how to play through him with as good a backcourt as they have is going to kind of be, in my opinion, the challenge or the mix or whatever you want to call it for Coach Lichty is to make sure that backcourt's going, but Perkins gets his touches.
Yeah, because North lost a rock fight to Papio South now, 40-45.
I was shocked. I was looking at that box score because Sauter was at that game, so we were texting back and forth.
He sent me the
that
box
night,
score,
and I just was thinking, ooh, nobody really shot it well for that one, but that's a gutty win for Papio South. And I think the key for Coach Lichty and Omaha North will be to keep those guys together in positive manners, because you think that backcourt is capable. And we know that Perkins is a good player, so you have good pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
He said it's just all about consistency, it's shot selection, and you got to get a few to go down too. They really struggled shooting the ball from three. They've got some capable shooters, guys that are
streaky for sure.
I think it was that Papio South game where Minor Strong was like 2 for 5 from three, and nobody else made one. He needs a little bit of help there. He's a good shooter. We know Thomas is capable of knocking down shots.
Guy, yeah.
But yeah, they've got some things to figure out, but they've got the talent that they can put together as we move along here, and we'll see what they look like in the Metro tournament once you get a few games in a row here playing against playing in that setting. Late submission that Prep Lincoln East game is Christmas in the Cage as well, so that adds even more to that matchup. Reminder from
tough place to play. Said it right away. You know what Christmas in the Cage is like when you get over there on Western Street. It will be a very tough place to play.
Yeah, and we were talking about Papio South. They're 4-1 and went 3-0.
Kircher and company really getting it going.
Yeah, well, went 3-0 last week. That Reese finally did get going in that 50-48 win at Miller South. Man, I feel bad for them. All of their losses are basically one possession, buzzer beater type of things. But yeah, Kircher had 18 in that game.
First breakout.
Yep, they had Bryson Ball had 26 in that North game.
He's been consistent.
But he shot 1 of 11 from three. We know he's capable of doing much better than that, but that was a rough one. He took 14 free throws to get to that 26 points.
So that for him, I think he's got a little Pekorski in him in terms of he has to be able to show. I think teams are going to stay close to him. He's got to show the ability that he wants to put it on the deck as opposed to being a catch and shooter or create kick to me shoot, because I think we know he's a knockdown shooter. I think people are going to force him to put it on the deck, which means a lot like Mosser, some of these guys that we've talked about, maybe as they get downhill, they'll find ways to get to the foul line.
Yeah, and that was the first real big game. For the most part, they've been doing it. They've had 3-4 guys between 10 and 19 points in all their games so far. And last week, Yeah, 3-4 guys in double digits in each of those games. So it's been pretty good balance for that team. Their only loss is to the Bellevue West. No shame in that. Very early in the season. So yeah, they're chugging along there at number 9 in the Coaches Bowl, and they got a big one against Gretna on Friday. Jumping back up, knock these out real quick as before we move on to B here. Westside 3-1.
They got to play better.
And didn't have the toughest schedule this week. A 66-50 win at Burke and a 73-56 win against Norfolk. Story of the week was Kevin Stubblefield, who scored 64 points on 30 shots in their 2 games. That's pretty good.
He was fantastic. And it's interesting. And I feel like I obviously know him really, 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 really well after watching him since he's been in the 6th grade, play with these guys. And, boy, he is so feast or famine. The next level for Kevin Stubblefield will be consistency. Because we saw he was the same guy that we watched against Lincoln Southeast, and we're thinking, wait a minute, you got to take better care of the basketball. He can't be, and all the little nitpicky stuff. But when he gets going, he's a tough matchup because he's not an above-the-rim player, but he's crafty with how he uses. He reminds me a little bit of Derek Walker using his shoulders and kind of the sneaky little spin dribble where he doesn't let you get a good look at it, and then it's up on you. Like, he's very crafty. They've got to take better care of the basketball. They got to get Tate Advati going. And they got to get Caleb back, who for sure this week they get him back, which I know that
breaking news on the pod.
Yeah, well, I mean, we told him, like, number 1, they need you, but 2, you're gonna have to play through a little discomfort, right? Like, it's the muscle's weak. You got to play through a little bit of discomfort, and so it'll be interesting.
Okay. I trust your sourcing on this one. But yeah, and Stubblefield 4-6 from 3, and
that was the dimension that he added because when he's out on the wing, they don't want to come get him because he was getting downhill, and he'll make
14 to 17 from the free throw line too. So
he'll make that shot on you.
Good balance all around, and that's what they need from him. That kind of gets through most of the top 10 there.
I really like, and I hope he continues to emerge in terms of his confidence because he's got a very quiet demeanor. Donnie Barfield, if he can come along with Ricky Lofton and maybe the second half of the season, makes Westside extremely formidable if they're healthy.
Yeah, and then Lincoln North Star is the 10th team.
I want to like them.
Yeah,
I do, Jake. I want to like them. You got to talk to me here. Can we get some consistency, do you think?
I think a lot of teams are going to get humbled when they face Bellevue West. So that first loss of the season after those 2 close wins in week 1.
You like their pieces too, though, don't you? Or is it just I kind of like their roster makeup this time.
Yeah, they certainly got some talent there. They're relying on some young guards in the backcourt. They've obviously got the size up front with Brennan Clemens and Antelis and Linnell. And then KG Gatwich on the wing is as athletic as anybody you'll find. So they definitely they've got some pieces there that as things continue to come together, they've got a chance to hang around there all season. So that's the top 10 in A. Want to move on to B?
Yeah. Well, we got to get to one of the best performances that, and it's not the number 1 team, it's the number 2 team, the other guy with the law firm. But let's start with Scott running their record to 3-0.
59-49 win at North Platte. That's a good win for them. Heading out west.
I agree with you.
Going up against a Class A team, and North Platte, obviously not one of the elite, but they've got some pieces there where they can make life difficult. And so took care of business there, and then 65-35 at Hastings as well. So on the road, improving their record to 3-0. And they face South Sioux City on Friday, so another 1 game week for the Skyhawks, who kind of continue to just roll through.
And which takes us to number 2, Platteview, who got the win over Elkhorn North and Malcolm, which some people kind of thought was going to be a sneaky test.
I was looking at the schedule trying to see, like, could I sneak over there after the Nebraska game, and then that thing went overtime. So never mind about that. But I was following along with, again, our friend Mike Sauter's tweets about it, and man, Alex Draper.
That's the thing.
Missed his first 3, hit his next 10, apparently.
Yeah.
Finished with 30 points on 10 and 12 from 3.
School record in terms of three-pointers
Yeah.
made. And when you play at a school that has Connor Milliken that's capable of 40 and 50-point outbursts, that's impressive. In my opinion, he's the key to balance with that basketball team. If they truly want to be a contender with Scott at the end, because I think Mosman's going to compete, Milliken's going to do his thing. Draper, in my opinion, is the guy that if he's shooting it well, man, can they fill it up in a hurry, because that gives them 3 quality knockdowns from behind the arc.
Absolutely. And Milliken added 21 and 11, just kind of ho-hum,
How about
doing
how
what
he just
does.
gets to the foul line?
Yeah. Well, and he's just so physical, so not he's not afraid of no matter who's standing between him and the basket. He's going to go hard. And if you're not in the right position to take a charge, apparently he had 2 or 3 charges in that game. But if you're not in the right position, he's going to live at the foul line. So you've got to be on point defensively, trying to guard him, because it's not a one-man job. You got to crowd him. You got to make sure, got to force him to his left hand. You got to force him into the tough in-between looks instead of giving him a direct lane to the basket. But he didn't have a great game from the field, but you had those two combined for 51 points. Malcolm scored 45 as a team. And Hayden Frank, another big game, 26, but didn't get enough to hang with Platteview as Malcolm made the jump up to Class B competition.
And very, very interesting when you take a look at what's happening in B, because you look up and you think number 3 and you're like, okay, it's early, but how about the usual suspect of Omaha, Ron Colley? They
After
just
losing their whole lineup.
Literally. Yeah. They just keep coming, and here they are sitting nicely at 3-0.
Yeah, and I believe Christian Swift, junior point guard, had a really good all-around game against Boys Town. They won 71-58. They beat Concordia 58-47 at home to improve to 3-0. So Ron Colley, a whole new group, just continuing to roll along. They've got some pieces there. But with Class B, I don't think there's a ton of depth where a team like Ron Colley, they lost all they did, but they've got enough coming back that they can hang in that mix as well, where there aren't a ton of teams that are jumping up. And that's number 4 Scottsbluff, again, who lost their 2 best players.
Good talent cycle for them, though, here for the next maybe one more year, 2.
And they've got I believe, freshman Nate Kelly, who is a pretty impressive player. I saw him at the Bison, the MBDA tournament, I believe. But they're 4-0, they just won a tournament out there, went 3-0 against teams from Wyoming. They've only played one Nebraska team so far. It's a 65-59 win against Sydney. And they'll play another on Friday when they go to Shadron before facing a team from South Dakota on Saturday. So that's it's a pretty balanced team with Kellen Harris leading the way. They've got a couple other starters back from last year, and then some young guys kind of filling in other spots.
Death taxes and this kind of being part of the top 5 with Elkhorn and, well, I don't want to skip over because Crete is back as they make their appearance at number 5 in the coaches poll, off to a 4-0 start.
Beat Beatrice by 5 and then beat Grand Island Northwest by 26. And Crete's a team that they've got some pieces with Jabin Gardner. Inside and
you're talking about the point guard.
Yeah.
And I just forgot his name. Because he plays the little 2-man game with Gardner. But it's kind of good for me. You know, I was this name for Crete fans, this will ring a bell. I was a big Levi Mel guy, MEHL.
McDowell. Aiden McDowell. Thank you.
And
sorry, Aiden. You're a good player. I knew your name.
Going back to like the early 2000s, the late 10s, where it's like Crete had some nice runs with Coach McGinnis, and I'm just thinking this is football, obviously, and wrestling, but it's good to kind of see Crete back in the mix after some years off.
Yep. So they'll face Fairbury and Palmyra this week. So, again, not facing a ton of Class B competition at this point because of where they're located. That's their schedule. We'll see them continue to kind of make a push to hang around there in that top 5. Elkhorn at 6, 3-1. Only loss is to a non-Class B team. 3-0 against Class B. 0-1 against Ashland Greenwood.
And you believe in Comstock too, right? Because I like Comstock's game.
I was there Thursday for that loss. It was a midair putback at the buzzer by Drake Zimmerman on a missed three to beat Elkhorn in their own gym. It was a tough battle back and forth. The stretches where neither team could score, and then there was an offensive explosion in the second quarter, more points in the fourth. So it was just kind of a weird game just from the way it flowed. But in the end, it was a good win for a very good Ashland Greenwood team, who again will be right in the mix for the Class C1 title all season. But Elkhorn, they've got size. They've got some guard play. Dylan Pertucci played really well against Ashland Greenwood. They need him to be a little bit more consistent. Same with Comstock, who is certainly talented. He had some foul trouble on that Ashland Greenwood team.
I like Comstock.
Hit a big-time three to tie it up, pull up three off the dribble, had 9 points on 4 or 5 shooting in that game. But again, it was stuck in foul trouble, committed a tough one, back-to-back fouls early in the half that sidelined him. But that's a team. They're playing a different style now with Nick Thompson coming over. Yeah. They're not playing the 1-3-1. They're not playing the dump it into the post and play around that. They're playing more 4-out, ball handling, dribble drive type stuff, and some pick and roll. And they're playing man. And that's a transition for kids who haven't played man during their high school career. Like, everybody's played man-to-man at one point, but it's different when you're used to playing a zone. That's what you practice primarily, to flipping the switch, and now you're playing almost exclusively man-to-man. So there's some kind of growing pains with that, but they're off to a great start with 3 good Class B wins. They bounced back and won 50-48 at Norris, who is a team that has some good pieces. They won the second half 26-18 to win that thing. Chris Garner, young freshman there for Norris, is playing well.
There'll be a couple of those guys in Class B where you're going to hear us talk about freshmen that we're going to kind of keep an eye on. And
then Barrett Bosegrad, as a sophomore, is off to a very good start, and I believe led them in scoring in most, if not all, of their games so far this season. So that Norris, I believe that number 10, they're 2-2. So York didn't get a play last week. Game against Waverly postponed. They're 2-0 at number 7. And then Mount Michael.
They got a big one tomorrow with Elkhorn. So we'll see kind of where both teams are as Elkhorn travels to York.
Yep. And then Mount Michael off to a 4-0 start. And
good to see Coach Spooner.
Harrison Long the 78-64 against at Wahoo Newman, 68-63 at Ralston, and 43-33 at home versus Grand Island Central Catholic. Harrison Long, 28 in the first game, 35 in the second game, and 20 points and 10 rebounds in the third game. That's a pretty darn good week for the junior.
Watched him his whole basketball career, played against him. Actually, I didn't. The kiddo did, and very capable of going to get buckets. Can shoot it from distance, works on his game. Handle is starting to tighten up a little bit. I think his fitness is starting to come around. And he's starting to people kind of wondered what happened to him after leaving Millard West, and it's like, well, wait a minute, where did he go? And he's at Mount Michael doing big things.
12 of 27 from 3 last week. Pretty good.
He will dial from distance now. He's not gunshot.
He was 6 of 14 against Ralston. So that was a great start for Mount Michael there. And then Bennington, not a great start, but they bounced back and got those 2 wins. I was also there Friday against Elkhorn North.
That was a good win, I thought, although I'm not sure what to speak of. I don't know what to think about Elkhorn North.
Yeah, I think it's a team still trying to learn how to win. But they had that game down, and then Gunnar Lim, just an incredible play. They're down 3 with 12 seconds left. They trap in the corner, jumps up, gets a tip on the pass, gets it himself, dribbles, kind of a turning 3, and knocks it down. And then not enough time. Elkhorn North got to half court, didn't even get a shot up before the time expired. So that sent it to overtime. And then right away, Lim to the basket and one to give them the lead, and they never trailed in overtime, despite the best efforts from shooter Will Farrington. Hit 5 threes in the game. I don't know what's going on with my mind today. I know all these names.
It's okay.
But
and it's hard to forget Farrington just because he's knocked down. I mean, he'll let it fly. He can shoot it.
So that game as a whole, the 3-point shooting was absolutely insane. Let me look this up.
He said absolutely insane.
Unreal display. Again, you got Lim hitting the one at the buzzer. You have Farrington hitting 5 of them himself, including some tough ones down the stretch. He had a look for the tie, but great play from Trey Bird, who blocked the shot and rebounded.
They're going to be better in a couple weeks, significantly, in my opinion, than they are now getting the football guys back.
Yeah,
that's Bennington with the 2-2 start I'm talking about.
Yeah, so Bennington, they bounced back and won the second game. But in that game, the teams combined to go 23 of 48, which is about 48% from 3. Elkhorn North went 12 of 23, 52%. Bennington went 11 for 25, 44%. So that's unreal 3-point shooting display. Just running through a few of the best performances I saw before we get out of here. Wowsa senior Jackson Clausen, 39 points. Went 7 of 14 from 3, had 7 rebounds and 4 assists in a win against Elgin Pope John. Jax Beal had a huge week for Fairbury, a senior there, 37 points.
They got a big one coming up.
Yeah, 37 points against Superior with 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 4 steals, and 5 blocks. And then followed up with 24 points, 3 boards, 2 assists, 4 blocks against Milford. Corian Gallatin, 37 points, a freshman out at Fremont. 7 of 13 from 3, 5 assists in a win against Bellevue East.
They've really got to get him some help because he's got elite IQ, he's a good ball handler, and he can shoot it.
Carter Nelson, nearly a triple-double with 19 points, 13 rebounds, and 9 blocks, plus 3 assists and 2 steals in a win against West Holt. Heck of an athlete. Really good basketball player in addition to obviously being a great football prospect. 2 more. Kale Gustafson, 26 points, 16 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 steals against Hampton. And then O'Neill St. Mary's freshman Gage Hedstrom, who's off to a great start to the season. 32 points, 5 rebounds, 4 steals in a win.
Just a freshman?
Yeah. He's
just a freshman?
20-plus in every game so far this season for them. Pretty good start for that kid.
All right, we're going to add Hedstrom to the list of guys that Jacob Padilla will be following that we can give you better coverage. Another week in Nebraska Preps postgame. There is a ton in here. Don't you dare miss us. We'll be back next week.